Hello guys, welcome back to our platform guys. Please consider subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. Guys, African Union is the problem of Africa. African Union is what? Is the problem to Africa. That's why we are experiencing on what is going in Burkina Faso. Just watch this video before we proceed.
As long as we have a country called Togo, a country called Eswatini, a country called Malawi, Berlin Conference is alive and well. It's a policy that they spent 3 months strategizing on how to see to it that Africa and her children are forever defeated and dominated. I'm going to repeat that. 3 months of strategizing, or 4 months of strategizing and making sure that they put together a policy to make sure Africa and her children are forever defeated and dominated. And that policy is still in place today. That is why we still have a country called Malawi, a country that can never survive on its own. That is why we are unable to see that obvious fact to say we cannot survive as these little-bitty African countries. That is why it is difficult for us to say, why can't we just say Africa for the Africans, no passports? It's a simple decision. The leaders just have to table it in their cabinets, done.
For a long time now, we have seen the failure of African Union in matters that are key and pertinent to Africa. This is the time that we can see the West flexing its muscles against African leadership. The recent videos that we are seeing, from General Michael Langley to the European Union chairperson, van der Leyen, constantly stating that they are not going to lay off their hands from Africa and African resources. Still, African Union is silent. African leaders are threatened by West, by the US, by European Union, by France, but still African Union keeps quiet. And this is because of some of the things that we have been seeing. Majority of these African leaders who are heads of states, part of the African Union, they are proteges, they are projects by the West. They are people that have been planted there to champion the interests of the West, just like we used to see with the leadership that was kicked out in the Sahel region. People like the former president of Ghana running to France to explain the circumstances of what is happening. A key example is our own president from Kenya, William Ruto, going to report to France of what is happening in DRC. African leaders who cannot provide solutions for Africa. These are not the leaders that we want. African Union currently is still silent as Western countries are threatening an African leader. This is a leader that is appreciated, is loved and supported by all Africans, both in the continent and globally, in the diaspora. Every country, every African black person currently now is standing up and saying, we stand with Ibrahim Traoré. But what does the African Union do? Remain silent. We see our resources being used by foreign powers to empower themselves and enrich themselves as Africans suffer in poverty. We have seen our human power being used by Western countries to prosper themselves. Doctors are leaving the continent. Legal practitioners are leaving the continent. Teachers and all these people are leaving, while still Africa is silent. African Union is silent. For how long shall this continue? Muhammad, the new chairperson, who is also supposed to be standing up for Africa, is silent. I believe as Africans, the way we have stood up with Ibrahim Traoré, it's high time we bring our concerted effort to call out the African Union. It's either they shape up or they ship out. It's time to start discussing about African unity. When you look at all the economic pillars, economic blocks, whether it's East African Community, whether it's SADC, whether it's ECOWAS, whether it's the Union of the Maghreb, none of them are discussing about the unity of Africa. The vision that Muammar Gaddafi had of a united Africa with one passport, one army, one currency, and all these things. None of them are talking about these things, but they are quick to be summoned by the US, where you find African Union, the USA African Union Summit. You find China African Union Summit, Italy African Union Summit. For how many years shall we continue being slaves? Shall we continue being summoned by these Western countries and Asian countries? High time Africans say enough is enough. It's either the shape up or the ship out. We are tired. We all in the African continent and diaspora stand up with Ibrahim Traoré. We support him. We need this kind of leadership who is going to stand for Africans, not the kind of people who are being used as tutelages, who are being used as proteges, who are being used as puppets by the West to benefit them, while the Africans continue being called poor, where we are always looked down. We are mistreated in immigration offices. We are mistreated everywhere we go. Our own brothers and sisters are being used as slaves whenever they are being employed out there. Enough is enough. We need proper governance. We need leadership that is going to empower Africa to rise up to where it's supposed to be. Africa is blessed with everything, resources, good arable land, mineral resources that are in plenty. We cannot even finish what we have, but we're still a poor continent, third world. As we continue to suffer, it's enough, it's enough. We don't want this anymore. So Africans, let's continue rising up and calling out our leadership until we see change effected in the continent.
Issues and trying to come up with solutions. And I have a serious question to ask them about African Union. Do we think it is an organization that is serving Africans, that is answering the questions that Africans have, and also solving problems that Africans are facing? As we all know, there's a lot going on in Africa, right? In many of African countries. But is African Union really addressing these issues and trying to come up with solutions? I understand they set goals, and we've seen that they had really good goals in the past, and even for like 2023, 2024. But are those goals being accomplished? Are they even seeing where they've come so far when it comes to, did we meet it? Did we fall behind? So what do we do next? Like, I don't know anymore, fam. I don't know anymore. And just recently, the 37th African Union Summit concluded. And as you know, there's lots of things that happened. For example, the activist for DR Congo holding the placard, like interrupting the summit, creating awareness for what is happening in DR Congo. There was also a kind of like a controversy. What is it called? Like an interruption, but more so during the break time. And even that went viral last week. And I know some leaders met to discuss DR Congo as well. And there was a back and forth when it comes to the Somalia president and him not being allowed to enter the AU meeting, which they said that it is because he came in with his own security and that's not allowed. Ooh, I don't think I'm allowed to say the word here as well, so I might need to remove it. But I know a lot of people already say African Union is useless and it's just, let's not even talk about it. But it's really important that we decide what it is, what it stands for, so we can move forward, right? Most importantly, we should not forget that a lot of funding of the African Union comes from abroad. And as we know, when someone is funding you, when someone is paying you, you're most likely going to want to be on the good side of that entity, that person, that organization, that nation. So just right there, it's just like by default, it's going to be very hard to look at African Union and expect more from them. But then again, we can't just accept, I don't know, what do we do? Do we believe that African Union can be salvaged? Do we believe that African Union is for the people? And do we actually believe that African Union maybe should be seen as like a sign, like a symbol, and just that's it? Nothing is happening on that side, and we should not expect, which is sad, because you see at let's say like European Union or all these countries that create, even BRICS, like BRICS is moving so well. in such a short period of time, to the point where so many countries are interested to be part of it, right? So for African Union to be around for as long as it did, and remember the founding fathers, when they first started it was known as OAU, but now it's African Union. But this is not the vision that I had for African Union. The African Union vision in the first place was about Pan-Africanism, all of us coming together, having, a stronger voice when we're all coming together and fixing our own problems, finding solutions on our own for our own people. But then again, when you look at it, it's just, I don't know, I see it as like a money wasting organization that is probably there to not serve us, but just claim that they're there. I don't know. Just let me know down below. I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you what your thoughts are about African Union, because after this recent meeting, I'm just not sure about how I feel. I'm just not sure on how I feel about African Union. I've always been skeptical, but this one just, yeah, it's kind of sad to see. So I have a serious question to ask fam.
African Union has failed a lot. This issue of Ibrahim Traoré, African Union was supposed to address this issue. We've not seen African Union addressing this issue. We've not seen African Union coming through to talk to Western, to stop Western from coming in African to threaten African countries. We've seen most countries in African Union are still depending on the whites, are still depending on colonialism countries. Has failed to have one decision. They used to get a decision from whites, whereby there is an issue where Gaddafi said, African, we were supposed to use one currency, and African, we were supposed to not to depend from other nations, but we African Union, we are supposed to depend on ourselves. Whereby, guys, in Africa, we are richer than those countries that we believe in depending on. This country, for example, in France used to come to Africa, like Burkina Faso, get gold, get uranium, and go manufacture it and sell extra profit than the way they came in Africa to get it. So most people in West, most countries in West used to come in Africa. They deploy their troops in African, and they come in African to get those resources that we are having. You see, for the example, after Ibrahim Traoré decided that not working with France and decided that Burkina Faso is going to mine its own gold and sell by its own, by stopping those companies that are from abroad to manufacture and sell to other countries in a higher price, leaving African remain poor. Ibrahim Traoré decided to not working with France, and you've seen what are the results that has brought by the white or by the American and France to Ibrahim Traoré. They're trying to make sure that Ibrahim Traoré is no longer being the leader of Burkina Faso. They're trying to make sure that Ibrahim Traoré cannot influence other countries in Africa. Because what? In case Ibrahim Traoré influences more countries to work the way he's working, to work smarter the way he's working, most countries in the white, most countries from the West will suffer a lot. Most countries from West may not be receiving the profit that they are receiving from Africa. Most West countries may become poorer the way we African, we are poor. You see, in Africa, we are blessed with the gold. In Africa, we are blessed with the uranium. In Africa, we are blessed with the crude oil. In Africa, in terms of the agricultural sector, we are doing good. So here in Africa, we are the only continent that serves other continents by minerals. We are the only continent that serves other continent with uranium, and we are the continent that serves other continent with food. So people from West decide to make sure that Ibrahim Traoré to be no longer the leader of Burkina Faso, to make sure that the influence of Ibrahim Traoré not to go to other leaders here in Africa. That's why we've seen so many complaints that are coming in by those whites. Gaddafi was the thinker like Ibrahim Traoré. Gaddafi was the mastermind of these changes in Africa. Gaddafi decided, spread all over the Africa, was preaching we Africans to have one currency, was preaching we Africans not to depend on West. That's why Gaddafi was assassinated. That's why Gaddafi is no longer in nowhere to be seen. So these things is the only thing that African Union is failing with Africa. African Union is not supporting African to conquer these problems that we are facing by the whites. African Union is the one that dining with the West. African Union is the one. African Union leaders are the one dying with those European who are coming in African to get all our minerals, who are coming in African to discriminate us and take all the resources to make sure that African cannot stand on its own. So we are urging African Union are supposed to make sure that African we are together, and African we are moving together, and African we are no longer depending on those European Union. So this is the things that African Union is failing. Whenever you see securities, we are getting securities from European Union. Whenever you need to have a meeting, you are getting your meeting with Italy. You are getting your meeting of Italy, African Union. You are getting the meeting of China, African Union. You are getting, so we are not depending on ourselves, which means African are not ready to work together to conquer this problem that we are facing. African Union, they don't get their decision by their own. They depend on the decision of what? The decision of West. So we are supposed to come together and stop these things which are happening here in Africa. We are supposed to come together and fight America to stop threatening Burkina Faso. We are supposed to come together to stop France from threatening Burkina Faso because of minerals, because of uraniums, because of golds which are in Africa. We are African, we are blessed. All minerals that we are having are our minerals. We no longer depending, we are supposed to use our mineral well so that African can prosper the way we believe it to be.